So I have a couple of notes while we're waiting. So I'll just talk about my story, right? I'll talk about where I came from. Um, so again, I started life as a musician. That was what I was going to do forever. That's where I was going to be. Um, I was going to be a rock star, and then I was going to compose for film, and I didn't quite get there. I did a little bit. I after graduating college, which I went to school for recording, I I did some underscore for ad campaigns and things like that here and there. I made a little bit of money, but I could never really make ends meet. And then, maybe we'll expand on this. We'll expand on this once Tracy gets in here. But you know, I couldn't make a ton of money or a sustainable amount of money rather working in music. So kind of while I was working a part-time job at an Apple store in New York City, I found film and video. I taught myself to shoot and edit. And there was a lot of steps to that process, but I basically wound up getting hired away from my part-time job to be an editor on a big commercial campaign for a summer. And I guys kind of took a leap of faith and was promised, I think it was like 5 grand for the whole summer. I'm like, okay, I'll quit my job. I'll take a chance. And it worked out. I've been self-employed and independent since then. Again, I said it before, but it's somewhere around 12 or 13 years. And um, for a long time, for like a decade, it's been really fruitful. I've been able to make a living. Not an opulent one, but I've been able to make a living, uh, buy a house, start a family, like all this stuff off of essentially being a freelancer. And and that was great until we got to COVID. And COVID was like a big paradigm shift for a lot of people. And I know Tracy can back that up as well once we get her on here. Um, I thought, so to back up to COVID, my wife and I were living in New York City. Um, we were running out of space. We were getting priced out. We wanted to find something that was a little more simple. We wanted to buy something and we could afford to buy a room in the city or we could buy like a standalone structure somewhere else. So we wound up moving upstate a little bit to the Hudson Valley, which is where I am now. And when we made that pivot, I was convinced I'm like, okay, this is the right thing to do. Like this is a mess. COVID is happening. We're gonna take a chance, but I'm pretty much convinced I'm never gonna work again. And I was wrong, right? Once things kind of opened up and COVID settled down, the first couple of years post COVID, kind of normal. I've been a cinematographer. I should have said that up front. So my role on set traditionally has been I show up, I light, and I set. The visual side is where I live. Like I run the visuals, and I've been primarily in commercial and branded content. That's where I've been working. So I was convinced I was never going to work again. Nobody was going to hire me to shoot anything, and I was wrong. Like the 2 years after COVID, I got hired pretty consistently. The money was good. I think some of that was, you know, nobody had spent any money or done anything um, over the course of COVID. So clients and things like that were really kind of champing at the bit, so to speak, to spend money and like get back to normal. So the first 2 years felt normal. I was doing a lot of driving back and forth to New York City. Um, but that's what we did. Um, and it was fine. And then after those first 2 years post COVID, then things started to trickle off a little bit. Uh, Fast forward to 2025, not just me, anybody in the industry that I talk to, friends or colleagues, otherwise, everybody's having a really rough year. Not a lot of work to be had. I exist outside of like the studio system, or if you're in the know with filmmaking, like the union crowd. Uh, the shows you see on Netflix and HBO or the movies you go see, they're all like union productions, which I am not a part of. So I've kind of existed on the outside of that. But um, there's been like kind of a trickle down effect where when things don't go well at the top of the ladder, things don't go well for everybody else. So I've seen kind of a trickle off of regular work, and also simultaneously, I wound up in a place where life just started to look a lot different. We owned a house. So in since COVID, in this order, we weren't married when we moved up here. So I think in this order, it was leave the city, get engaged, buy a house, get pregnant, get married. All planned, by the way, in case anybody was curious. But it was a lot in like a 2-year time span. And life just felt different, right? Like priorities shifted, things that were important to me in the past maybe weren't as important. So, like, yes, working and making a living is important. And I'm a creative person. I want to be passionate and like sink my passion into my creativity. But I wanted to kind of like build something around my life instead of like build my life around a job. I talk about that a lot. For anybody, by the way, that's just joining, I know Tracy is supposed to be here, Tracy Friedlander. Um, I still see her waiting to join. Um, I'm not really sure. Let me see if I cancel this, if I can add her back. Okay. I just added her back. So hopefully we got the time right. She's an hour ahead of me. She's in Mexico. So it's 11:15, or now it's 11:20 something here in New York. We plan this. I'm going to chalk it up to technical difficulties. Anyway, she's supposed to be here. I resent the invite. I'm just going to keep talking at you for a while. I hope that's okay. So I wanted to kind of curate my work around my life, not the other way around. And I find myself in this really interesting predicament now where I'm kind of in like this weird hybrid existence where I'm still doing on-set production work because the amount of money that I can make versus the amount of time that it takes, even though I'm like driving back and forth to New York City and like eating up a bunch of time, still makes sense when the work happens. I also have a bunch of other things going on. If you can see, I don't know what the framing looks like for you guys if you're on a phone or whatever. My face is probably too big on your phone. But like if I tilt my camera, I have a podcast studio set up back here. It's called Upstate Podcast Studio in Kingston, New York. And I just started it kind of on a lark because I have the No Set Path podcast, which is a sister to my newsletter here on Substack. And with my audio background, my video background, I'm just like, okay, this is something I could start. It feels like it caters to my skill set and maybe it's something that people will want. And I kind of filled a gap that I didn't really know existed, other than I took a stab in the dark and knew that there were a lot of people in media and whatever that are up here in the Hudson Valley. They're former New York City folks, or they have ties to the city, but they want a different life. And I figured, at the very least, I'll get a little bit of traffic in here. And this has actually been really good. I was working on some ideas for a post about this where it's like, I don't market this at all. I should, but I don't. And it still does okay because people just find it on Google. So this has been steadily increasing in time. So between production work and this, that's a bunch of time. But I'm also, I made a promise to myself. My daughter's getting older. She just turned 4. I want to be around more. I want to be in control of my time. And this is still like me sacrificing time for money. So I'm, as if I need more on my plate, I'm now trying to figure out like how to build a more online component and how to take what I'm doing on Substack and take my expertise in media and kind of like fuse it into something. Anyway, so let me go back to my notes here. Yeah. So all this kind of like meandering backstory is to say that the more time I've spent online, and really it's not like a Substack plug. I've just found that this platform's been really beneficial for me in terms of it has all the things that I want for the most part in one place, which is a platform to write my newsletter and own an audience, which is super important. Um, but also it has built-in discovery, which doesn't exist anywhere else where you can own your audience. So that was really appealing to me. So I'm trying to figure out how to build out some things with that, um, so it can be exist more properly online. So when it comes to what actually prompted that shift to trying to go online a bit more, um, it's really just I'm building a life that I really want to prioritize, and family is important, and my time is important, and I feel like the more control over that I have, the better. And I'm in a privileged place to be able to say that. Um, I think what I'm working on now, which I'm also curious to talk to Tracy about. I'm just going to keep saying her name, and maybe that'll will her into existence on here. Uh, let's see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I still don't see her. Just checking my email. Okay. So the next kind of thing I want to talk about is the gap between like being skilled or having skills and monetizing online. And this is not a me talking to you and saying like, "Oh, I have it all figured out." No, no, no. Kind of like the ethos of what I do with No Set Path is figuring out in real time, which is what I'm working through right now. And I've been through like business mentorship and all this stuff. And a lot of it is mindset. And I find that I still at times have this mindset of like, oh no, I'm the person who like goes and executes a thing. Um, I'm good at it. I've worked with a ton of celebrities. Like I've worked on like high profile stuff. Like I'm good at being on set and working with people and like delivering the goods, so to speak. Um, and I'm good at like the technical stuff. Like this looks and sounds probably better than most remote calls or remote um, whatever sessions, and that's great. But there's so much more depth behind that, and there's so much more thinking and planning and strategy, and it's just like how do you take that and convert it into like a monetized thing? And I sort of have done the first part of that. If we take the online component out of it, I have actually taken my expertise and monetized that um, through consulting. I've done a little bit of consulting, not a ton, but the consulting I've done has been pretty high profile and like well paid. So because I have this studio space here and because I put out good work, I was put in touch with a bigger podcaster who I've posted about in the past. So if you dig back through my archives, you can look up Dwarkesh Patel. So he's a past consulting client of mine, and I've built out uh, his YouTube studio in the past. And when we started working together, he had not an insignificant amount of subscribers. He had like 250,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is awesome. But since we built the studio and built him a home base and had something that like looked and sounded totally pro, he exists like purely on YouTube for the most part, although he does write essays here on Substack. His subscriber numbers skyrocketed, went to like I think he's at like 1.3 million subscribers now, like something ridiculous. And that first studio was a success. They brought me back out to San Francisco to consult on their second studio build, which I'm not part of the construction phase of that. I was just kind of in the planning stage um, of that process. But, in January, I went out to San Francisco for 2 days and like kind of game plan the whole thing and specced out a bunch of stuff and met with his team. And in 2 days, I made more money than I made for the entire first studio build. So that is kind of like the first proof of concept to me that like, oh yeah, experience and expertise is leverage and you can get paid for that. So, now it's like trying to take that or like the kind of concept of that and move it to an online space. Um, And there's things that I'm really passionate about kind of outside of just like media and film and video and things like that. I just, for No Set Path, defined some content pillars. So, and I actually love that there are a bunch of people I don't know that are still here and still listening to me talk. So I'm gonna take that win. I'm just gonna keep talking at you about this, which is no, I lost my train of thought because I I stopped myself. Um I think it's as far as like monetizing knowledge. Um yes, monetizing knowledge, no set path. Here we go. I just defined a bunch of content pillars for the publication and the podcast, which is helping get a lot of clarity on the side. So, things that I'm really interested in that kind of have nothing to do with visual or audio media at all. Um, Creative entrepreneurship, that's one of the content pillars for this. It's pretty broad, it's pretty big. Um, but I love throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks, seeing the possibilities, coming up with ideas. Huge fan. Uh, just checking on email. The other one, I called it the inner game, but it's basically like the psychology behind why creatives get stuck and get in their own way. And I'm interested in that not because I have it figured out. In no way do I have it figured out, but I'm like going through the process and like sorting through it in real time. And I find that is beneficial based on the feedback I've gotten from people in the past, replies to the emails, things like that. The psychology, like the inner work, so to speak. That's really valuable, not just to me, but to others. And then the other content pillar, which is sort of tangentially related to creative entrepreneurship, is building in public. I want to test things. I want to figure it out. This whole Substack Live thing is something I really want to do more of, lean into more. And this is part of the building in public. And I have found in my personal experience, when I feel invested in someone and their story and their journey and them as a person, I am more inclined to follow them along each step of the way. And that's what I want to do. Like, hopefully you can tell if you've never seen me speak before or have any idea what I'm about. It's like I just kind of am a conversational person. I'll just kind of put myself out there. I don't want to be rigid. I don't mind stumbling or making mistakes. It's more like I just want my personality and my experiences to come across through the camera. And uh that's one of the things I'm really passionate about, is like figuring that stuff out in real time. Um so yeah. So that's kind of where I'm kind of like mid pivot, if you want to say it that way, where it's like I've proved it to myself that the expertise makes sense, to monetize and like leverage and all that stuff. Now I have to move into a place that I have no past experience on, which is like online business. No clue. I'm like literally throwing stuff at the walls and seeing what sticks, um, which is really cool and exciting. I could be nervous about it, and like some days I am, but I'm actually more excited than anything else. Um, so anyway, so there's that. Um, Let me just check really quickly. Give me 1 second, and then we're gonna go get 11:15. Okay, cool, great. Just double checking that I didn't again screw up the schedule for this, which I did not. Um, hmm. So I think I'm just looking at some notes off to the side here that I have, kind of like a flow for all of this. And there's a note about identity that I wrote it a different way, but I'm going to say this about identity and as it pertains to this whole like online shift and putting more of yourself out. Oh, hey, somebody commented. Look at this, Tina. What's my favorite thing to do now? Oh boy. Um, it's gonna sound so loaded. Um, but but I like to think and problem solve with other people. So I think that's the part that I really get the most out of you're new to Substack also. Cool. I'm like a little ahead. I've been here for like 8 months. Um I think I'm okay. So what I like to do now, the thinking, the problem solving, the coming up with new solutions and the collaborating, like all that stuff, like really leaning into to the expertise part. I think that's the part I liked about being on set the most. Like I never claimed to be the world's best cinematographer. Like I'm good. I can make a nice pretty image. I still get hired for stuff. I'm shooting a buddy's short film next month. That'll be fun. That'll be great. Um but it was never like the technical part. It was always like being on set with other people and like sharing in the mission and the energy. And that's still the part I like. And also the reason why I still get hired for those jobs because producers have told me verbatim that they want me on set because I I'm not a jerk. I'm good to clients. I'm easy to work with and they like having me around. So all that kind of like feeds into itself. Um, so yeah, collaborating. Um, the one thing that's kind of interesting to come back to kind of like this online pivot or exploration. The one thing that's interesting is how identity plays into all that. And it's actually like a really good segue from, a career in filmmaking to just kind of being hanging out on your own, trying to, you know, build something online. So if you don't know anybody in the film industry, I bet you do, but if you don't, I'll just kind of say it in the most easy to digest way possible. As with most industries, although creative industries tend to really be this way, they are a bubble, right? Everything, like I keep hitting my microphone. I'm sorry, it keeps making noise. Um, Everything is kind of like in its own little bubble. Um, and what I mean to say is that in the film biz, you kind of like eat, sleep, live that scene. And so then your identity gets like really tied up in that, right? And I think it was harder to take a step back and see that when I was like in the thick of it, living in New York and just kind of doing that, you know, every day essentially. Um, but having taken a step back and like gone through a bunch of life shifts and now kind of being in a wholly different place, um, I started to realize that, oh my God, my identity is like really wrapped up in what I do, not who I am. And that's taken some unwinding. There's still times that I need to do more unwinding. Let's say it that way. But having your identity like wrapped up in the craft is hard. Um, because at the end of the day, like again, what you do isn't who you are. And so I think having that realization is actually your superpower. Certainly for me, it's mine because you can just bring yourself to the table in whatever your next thing is. So it's like, I'm going to bring myself going forward, authentically me, to what I'm building with No Set Path, with a newsletter, um, anything else that I kind of bring to the table going forward. Um, it's really funny as a side note. I had a interesting kind of like discovery call with a potential podcast editing client. They're an organization, so it wasn't one person. It was like an organization, and I'll leave names out of it, obviously. But I think if you've been watching for any amount of time on this stream, like you get my vibe. I come to calls like this, you know, and I thought it was just going to be, hey, um, so you want me to edit your podcast? Like, let's talk about it. And it was like a full on, really dry job interview that I was not prepared for. And so just imagine it's kind of effectively, it's kind of like this, except you guys are actually giving me some feedback. Whereas I was talking to like three people and it was just nothing the whole time. So just imagine me in a room full in a virtual room full of people just acting like my goofy self and just getting nothing back. It was not great. But I don't feel bad about it because I was still just me. And I got to tell you, if they come back to me and they're like, we want to work with you, I might tell them no because the vibe check is so important. And that's where you get, I'm trying to tie it all together with identity, but I think you get it. It's like you have a vibe, you have your persona, who you are, what you like, what you don't like, how you present yourself, all that stuff. That's the leverage. It's not what you do, you know? It's who you are. So, something I've really enjoyed to kind of tie it back to Substack. I'm just going to check one more time. Okay. I'm just going to go with Tracy's a little MIA. It's fine. I think we're doing okay. If somebody wants to give me another comment to know you're listening, that would be great. But how Substack kind of ties to all this. As I've gotten older, and I don't put on airs about this, I'm coming to all this stuff later in life, as with most things. I'm in my mid 40s now. And I think that is a huge advantage because I'm better about not getting caught up in things that don't really matter. And the thing you'll always hear out in the world of the internet is, you know, if you want to build something online, you need to like build a personal brand. You need to put yourself out there, start creating things, just do more to like create some sort of surface area for yourself. And a lot of the advice is do that through social media, which totally makes sense until you have the realization that I do is like social media makes me sad and angry most of the time. Um, Coming from film, I spent a lot of time on Instagram. I'm still have a presence there. You can find me at Drew English with two H's at the end of it. Um, Honestly, would love to see you there because every time I go, I just wind up feeling worse than I did before. And I found after I had made the decision to move my newsletter to Substack and after I started digging in a little bit, like the whole community and the vibe seemed completely different. And I'm not one of those people like Substack growth people who like build my whole business around growing on Substack and like perpetuate the echo chamber. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just not that guy. But truly, I have found a level of like authenticity and connection on this platform that I haven't found anywhere else, which is why I keep coming back. I mean, even Tracy, who's supposed to be here, um, like we've become internet friends because of our interactions on Substack. And we had a Zoom call a couple weeks ago. And it's like we're just hanging out. It's great. Um, so I think how Substack kind of like fits in to all that for me is it just feels a little more real. I hope it doesn't change for the worse. I'm not gonna like go down that rabbit hole, but I think you get what I'm saying. So if you're here on platform and you're writing posts and writing notes and like creating stuff, like just keep doing it. I am a great example of like I don't have right now a huge audience. Like it's under 500. It's like 450 something last time I checked. But it used to be 200. So I've like doubled. I had a very, very small email list from my music days that I brought over here. So I didn't start from absolute square one on Substack. Um, and that's fine. But I'm pretty stoked that in a relatively short amount of time, I've effectively like doubled the amount of subscribers and the amount of people interacting with what I'm putting out into the world. So that's pretty cool, you know. And I get real feedback, real comments, real DMs and replies to emails. Um, which is pretty sweet. So that is all that is to say it's like, yeah, I want to figure out how to do how to manage more of like a business angle with all that, but I want to do it the right way because I want it to be authentic to me and authentic to the platform and all that stuff. Um, which is I'm looking at my notes here, which is like an interesting bridge to like, I don't know, I have something about gurus on here and like online guruism. You know, I don't know. I feel like we've all been there. We've all seen people that like promise certain things or certain transformations, um, and they kind of fall flat on delivering that. I can't say that I need to take a sip of water. Actually, hang on one second. Okay. I can't say that I've fallen into the guru trap, but I always tread cautiously because I've had actually really good and positive experiences in mentorship in the past. So my former business mentor is Rich Webster. He actually runs the Inner Entrepreneur publication here on Substack, and he's legit. He's a great guy. No BS, but like very personable. He's lived a lot of life, and he's helped a lot of people. And because my experience with that was so positive, uh, I tread very, very cautiously into into anything else. And I think that's also a bit of why I hold myself back in putting more offers out there, like lines in the water, to see what people might be interested in paying for, because I don't want to overpromise something that really isn't realistic. Um, People want transformation. That's why they invest in things. And I truly want to help people transform into the person they want to be, or get to the place they want to be. Um, and that's kind of like where my hang up is right now, is how do I take my really 20 years of expertise in media, if you talk about starting in music and audio and then moving into like visuals and things like that. Like, how do I take all that experience and just, do something good with it? Um, Something I've been thinking about, actually, I wasn't going to talk about this. Something I've been thinking about doing that I want to put out more, and I want to spend some time building um, the right way to put out like in emails and things like that, is kind of this interview offer. And I've seen a couple of these floating around, but kind of the idea I have is, I've test drove this with a few friends and close colleagues, but kind of the idea is everybody knows that they need to be putting more content, out there in the world. I don't love the term because it's like such a catch-all, but really everybody knows they need to be putting more of themselves out there to like build more of that personal brand recognition. Like however you want to frame it, they know they need to put more of themselves out there. Not everybody's great at showing up on camera. I'm okay at it because I've spent a ton of time on film sets. I host my own podcast where I myself am on camera. I'm going to start releasing some of those interviews here on Substack, by the way. Um, so not everybody's great at showing up or saying the things they should be saying. They they say what they think they should say, not what they need to say. They're putting out what they think they should put out, not what they need to put out. You know what I mean? So my whole idea is like an interview based offer where I, who have conducted a billion, well, maybe not a billion, it's a lot of interviews. Um, I know how to get the right stuff out of people. I conduct those interviews over like something called like Riverside, or one of those like remote podcast recording platforms, which are fine for this. conduct the interviews remotely once a month for like an hour to an hour and a half, um, with kind of like a goal in mind every month. So it's like working with founders, small business owners, creators, things like that. What are what are you working on this month? Like what's in the pipeline, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I'm gonna drive an interview based around that, right? We're just gonna have a conversation. I'm gonna get what I need. I'm gonna take that, right? Um, I'm going to create a bunch of good looking, good sounding social media video clips. Sure, there's like plenty of people can do that, but it's not the deliverable. You get me? It's not that you're getting a bunch of files. It's that you're getting the right stuff in the files. So with that, there's also a ghost written component where I'm taking that interview and then parsing that out into, I don't know, social media posts like LinkedIn posts. I'm not sure. It could also shift depending on client need, but that's kind of what I'm looking at right now as a way to a make some like regular recurring revenue for myself, but also b at the same time help people get the message they really need to be getting out into the world in a way that like looks and sounds good and feels authentic to them. And part of that whole thing I'm going to do is like an onboarding session where we kind of just go deep into them as a person, what their mission is, what they're working on, like all that stuff to kind of help me like build a little like background and profile on them so that I can take that approach and put their voice out there in the most authentic way possible because they don't have time to do it. So it would be a win-win on both ends. So that's what I'm working on. I think is my next foray into like trying to shift into some sort of like online component. I'm excited about it. If you have thoughts or questions about it, like drop a message in the chat or send me a message on Substack. It's something I'm spitballing, but that's also part of the building in public. Like you got to like, I don't want to swear on this, but kind of crap or get off the pot. So, what else do I have on here? Oh, yeah, ethical monetization. I think what I just said kind of speaks to that, right? I feel like, um, oh, nope, my phone is ringing. That's no good. Um, I feel like kind of what I just talked about falls under the guise of ethical monetization. And that's kind of where I'm getting to. Like, I don't want to, I'm going to feel icky if I put inauthentic things out into the world just to try and make a buck. You know, I want to like actually feel good about how I'm making money. Um, so there's that. So there's that. Uh, and the other thing, so I kind of have this like just in case there's time section, which I can't believe I've been talking by myself to you guys for almost 45 minutes. So I'll try to wind it down a little bit. And I'm just going to assume that something has gone a little sideways on Tracy's end, which is totally fine. Um, we're both parents. Life is crazy. We'll get something else on the books. Um, and boy, it would be great to have another person to talk to instead of just a picture of myself. But I feel like I'm hanging with it. Um, so okay. In the spirit of building in public, here's where here's what I'm trying to figure out a little bit better is building an audience. And I know that term gets tossed around a lot, but it's like trying to build an audience without performance, which I feel like I'm okay at in the non-performative side. It's like, again, going back earlier, I am just trying to put I'm just trying to, sorry, okay. I'm just trying to put, my real self out there. And, you know, I'm not for everybody. You should not be for everybody. The people who are your people are going to find you if you just keep doing your thing. So I want to keep building authentically. The thing I'm running into that I'm trying to work through right now is how do I speed up that build? And there are going to be plenty of people who say, go at your own pace, like slow build, blah, blah, blah. But, and that's fine. But also, I really want this to be part of a viable business model. And because of that, I just want to figure out a way that I can at least have some predictability to audience growth. Um, so that's what I'm working on right now. One thing I did uh, is I finally started time blocking my calendar, but in a way that doesn't like stress me out. Where and also I don't share those time blocking calendars with my wife because that she would get stressed out. But basically, it's like I know what on any given week, more or less, my responsibilities are going to be in terms of parenting and house things, and how can I weave what I want to accomplish around that, and then also when I have to work, like after I get off of this, I'm going to go right back to a podcast edit that's sitting right here on this other screen and finish that up because it needs to get delivered. So it's like I've started time blocking. Oh, my camera focus went crazy. I've started time blocking. This is the first week I'm trying it, and it's honestly been pretty good. It's been I made the blocks big enough where it's like if I kind of screw it up a little bit, it's okay. There's enough leeway. Uh, but a big one is doing some like physical activities, physical exercise. I don't do enough of it. And I forced myself out of bed this morning to just do like some stretching um and some like squats and just like lights. It took me 10 minutes, but on the walk here, because I can walk to this studio, I noticed a difference. And that's the kind of thing where it's like it sets you up better, it sets me up better for my day. Um and then, trying to like squeeze in blocks for writing my newsletter, blocks for kind of curating and creating offers, things like that. It's an experiment, but um I think that's one of the ways in which I'm trying to combat um I was going to say combat lack of momentum, but it's not like lack of momentum. It's just like putting like framing things in a more positive light instead of saying, "Oh, what's today going to look like?" I don't know. Giving some structure to an otherwise unstructured kind of thing. Um so I'll I'll toss it out here for the few of you. Well, I mean, there's like 11 people here. That's pretty sweet. Um, Anybody who's spending time here on Substack, new or otherwise, like, what's your experience been? Mine's been pretty positive. I think it's like a good place to at least start to build something. And I started. It's funny, unintentionally. I started over here right when like all these big creators start coming over, like people with millions of followers and on other platforms just start like one day start showing up on Substack. It was really, really interesting to me. But it was also kind of what happened to my camera here? Hello. It was also kind of a signal that you know, this platform has more legs than I think a lot of people gave it credit for. Um, so I'm just kind of leaning into it. Uh yeah. I've been talking for a long time. I Thanks for sticking around this long, and letting me just kind of give some of my background, kind of where I came from, what I'm working on now. I want to do more of these. I obviously will get Tracy back on a call. I'm sure a bunch of you are here because of her. Um, so I want to make that happen. We had a really great conversation was when it was just the two of us. So I think it would be really great to be able to like chat live and have people listen in. Um, if you have any questions, obviously you can DM me, message me here on Substack. Um, my podcast studio is Upstate Podcast Studio. If you're curious, the website needs a serious overhaul. I'm on Instagram at Drew English with two H's at the end. I don't do as much as I used to there, but I show up occasionally. This is kind of like the main the main hub for me at this point. And there's also the No Set Path podcast, which I've been a little laxed on posting because this has taken priority, and I've also been trying to figure out how to like really structure it or like weave it into the broader ecosystem. But I think I'm getting to a good place with it. And I think what I'm going to do is start posting because they're interviews for the most part. It's not me talking, it's me with a guest. I'm going to start posting probably like once a month, a long form interview here with like a YouTube link in lieu of like maybe a longer essay, which I'm interested to experiment with and see how people resonate with that. So, I mean, that being said, thanks for hanging out with me for almost an hour. Um, I want to do more of these. I'm happy to do more solo ones with like a little more solid topic. I was just kind of winging it through some things I was going to talk with Tracy about, but I had a good time. Hope you guys did too. And thanks for coming by.